And I remember the person listened to our pitch, and let's not forget, we practiced this on Skype, and we hadn't really practiced it. You know, he'd flown in, he was jet lagged, and we kind of wung it a little bit. So I remember the producer like rolling his eyes, and the next thing he gets like a call in his ear. Right, okay, you're on. And literally, oh God, it was horrible. I felt sick.
From Ministry of Work, welcome to Greater Manchester's Greatest Minds podcast, a show about Greater Manchester's pioneers, entrepreneurs and visionaries, and the stories that brought their ideas to life. I'm Eddie Whittingham, and today we're joined by Naomi Timperley, described as one of the most influential women in UK IT, an award-winning freelance growth and innovation consultant. She has experience of advising some of Greater Manchester's best tech businesses. Naomi hasn't always been immersed in Manchester's tech scene. Originally growing up down south, Naomi eventually came to find her home and career here in Manchester. A career that varied from advising tech businesses through to hiring out nightclubs for babies and toddlers, and even an appearance on Dragon's Den.
I was born in Barnstable, North Devon.
Yep.
My dad was in the army, so me and my brother were born there, and then we moved to Chatham in Kent, where my sister was born. And then from Chatham in Kent to Bulford, which was near Stonehenge. And then when I was 4.5, we moved to a place called North Camp in Farnborough, which is near Aldershot, which was at the time the home of the British Army. And I was there from 4.5 until I was about 25, 26. So that's where I was born. That's where my roots are, I suppose. We used to go to Devon every summer, and then my parents split up when I was a teenager, and that kind of stopped.
And how did you end up in Manchester?
Ended up in Manchester. So my first career was in the travel sector, and at the time I was working as a holiday rep for a company called Balkan Holidays in Bulgaria, and my mum had split up with her partner and moved up to Warrington because she bought her brother's house. Her family her dad was in the army, so she travelled all over the world, and they also had a house in North Devon, but had a house in Chiltern. And then some of her brothers had stayed up here, and then one of her siblings was in Southampton, one was in London. So she wanted to get out of Farnborough, and because I was still living at home in between seasons, that's how I ended up here. And then met my husband through friends in Bulgaria, and he was from Manchester. So
so all the way to Bulgaria to find.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what I'd like to do today is really dive into your career and your experience as to how you are who you are today. A lot of people particularly in the tech startup scene in Manchester will know you, perhaps won't know your background, which I think is quite interesting. Yeah. And you were described as the fourth most influential woman in UK IT, which is quite a claim. Yeah. So I'd like to just sort of delve back into that. How did you start becoming involved in this tech scene? And even before that, like what led you to that?
Purely by accident, and I'm not even joking. So go back to like the beginning. So my first job was a travel agent. Then I worked for Balkan Holidays in London. Then I did overseas. So I did 2 summers and then 2 winters as a ski snowboard bum, and then moved up here, and I got a job in the late 90s in tech recruitment. So I used to work for a company called Rulion. Started off a resourcer and then ended up as account manager. So contracts, that was my first foray into tech. I still sadly remember the first guy that I placed was called Ravji Patel, and he was a C++ programmer, which I think is quite sweet that I remember that.
And at that time, did you have a clue what all that meant? No.
Not really, no. I knew it was a big deal but I think the most hilarious thing is I remember recruiting for Y2K experts because they thought when it got to the year 2000 that everything would stop working. So they had all these people getting paid extortionate amounts of money to consult.
To check,
So yeah, went went to into recruitment, did that for 3 years. Then I helped set up the Manchester arm of a travel recruitment company called C&M Travel. Did that for a year. In between that, I'd got married and got pregnant with my first child. And I took 4 years out to have my two daughters, who are now 21 and 19. And after about 4 years, I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. My husband had a very successful industrial cleaning business at the time. And one day, randomly, I was researching party ideas for my eldest, who was nearly 4,
Right.
and came across this American concept called Baby Loves Disco that was in 27 cities across America. And there was loads of YouTube videos on it. And it just popped up when I did a search. And it looked amazing, like really cool. They did it in nightclubs in the daytime, had cool DJs. The people that organised it seemed really cool. Like it was set up by a professional dancer called Heather, and then a guy called Andy got involved, who was a music lawyer and music producer. And it literally spread by the mummy word of mouth to 27
wow.
cities across America, which is quite incredible.
That's what was the concept? It was
It was
literally.
basically they take over a nightclub on a Saturday or a Sunday in the daytime and have a disco.
Yeah.
But like a DJ with proper disco, not like Bob the Builder or anything like that.
Yeah.
And they would have a bar open and they would have a chill out area. They'd have healthy snacks and juice boxes, nappy changing area in the toilets. And it just looked really cool. And I was like, oh God, I've not been to a nightclub for 4 years. So I emailed them on a whim and said, have you thought about bringing it to UK? Told them a little bit about myself. And obviously when I'd done the rep stuff, I'd had to organise quite a lot of events and things like that and trips. And they came back to me and said, we have thought about bringing it to the UK. Somebody did attempt to do it. So a Sky News presenter had attempted to do it. She'd not done it with their brand. She'd basically heard about it, tried to copy it and failed miserably.
Yeah.
So I was like, look, I'm not going to put any money into it. I'll put blood, sweat and tears into it. You can put some money into it. And they was like, okay, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it in Manchester and London. That was in 2007. So February 2007, when we first had those conversations, launched it in September 2007 in London and Manchester.
Wow, so it moved quick.
Moved very quickly. The marketing budget was really low. I'd never done any marketing at all because I'd never had to do it for the jobs that I'd had. But what I learned very quickly was how to build communities up, how to do grassroots marketing, how to do partnerships. And one thing we did invest in was PR. So with these two women who lived on the same street in Southfields in Wimbledon, both Americans actually, who had worked both in the music business. One of them had been the marketing manager for Universal.
Yeah.
And the other one had been in a platinum-selling punk band called NY Loose and toured with the Ramones and Marilyn Manson.
Oh, cool.
And they had an incredible black book. They just started up a business specialising randomly in kids' music. And we were one of their first clients. And before we'd even launched, we had a 2-page spread in Saturday Times knowledge supplement.
Wow.
So I'd gone from like being a stay-at-home mum and going to like, mummy groups to doing interviews with the Times. It was surreal. And my life just changed overnight.
Yeah.
So within 2 years, we were in 9 cities across the UK.
Wow.
We had a TV advertised album with Universal, OVS. I got hounded by the BBC to do Dragon's Den, which we did. Got offered investment, turned it down because they wanted too much equity.
Yeah.
And we kind of did everything that they said that they were going to do anyway. And I started getting involved with women's entrepreneurship and youth entrepreneurship and fell in love with it. So after 4 years doing the events business, I sold my shares to our Scottish host mum. And, not for very much. Trust me, it was like a couple of grand.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. And we did loads of incredible things.
Yeah,
but it didn't make.
Yeah. But interesting, that was your first business, really.
Yeah.
Wasn't it,
that was my first. That was my
first foray, isn't it?
Yeah, that was my first business, and like I said, I wasn't planning on doing that. So then I set up Enterprise Lab with 2 guys that I met on Twitter.
Obviously.
Savin Mohammed and Kitan Makwana. And Enterprise Lab was set up to bridge the gap between education, employment, and enterprise. So we work with schools, colleges, universities, councils.
Where did that idea come from then? Because that's quite a jump from baby discos.
Because I'd started getting involved with sort of youth entrepreneurship and women's entrepreneurship
Yeah.
whilst I was doing Baby Loves Disco. I started doing like loads of talks and things like that. Everyone wanted to hear the Dragon's Den story and stuff like that, and I just loved it. I just loved helping people with their ideas. That's where that came from. And we did really cool things. We worked nationally and internationally. Worked on, I'm just talking actually to somebody in Stockport the other day. One of the projects we worked on was called the Market Enterprise Launchpad with Kensington and Chelsea Council and Portobello Road Market. And we worked with, I think it was about 12 people under 30 who had product ideas,
Yeah.
and the winner would get a 6-month stall on Portobello Road Market.
Oh, amazing.
That was really cool.
Yeah,
So we
that's
did
really
loads of
cool.
stuff like that. A lot of it was around entrepreneurial thinking and things like that. And so I got into doing ideation and design thinking. Did that for about 2.5 years.
Was that a business or was that?
It was a business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a business. Did that for about 2.5 years, and one of the directors had sort of come away from it. And we did, we got involved with a really cool event that Catan had spearheaded called Youth Enterprise Live, which was a big 2-day event at Earl's Court, which was an idea on a piece of paper, and then literally, I think 7 months later was a massive event. That was incredible to be involved in that. But yeah, Catan was getting involved with the startup loans. I was not interested in that, so I came away and just been consulting ever since.
Oh, cool.
So I do lots of different things now. I call myself a growth and innovation consultant. So I work with startups and scale ups, predominantly in the tech, digital, and creative space, because that's the sort of companies that I've ended up working with.
Yeah.
So it's all by accident.
No, and it often is, isn't it?
Yeah.
When I started mine,
Yeah.
I started out just doing debt recovery reports
Yeah.
for law firms,
Yeah.
and then it soon pivoted into cybersecurity,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
that's how it happens
Yeah.
sometimes. And
Yeah.
that's sometimes the best way to let it
Yeah.
go organically.
Yeah, yeah.
I think sometimes people fall foul of thinking you have to have a very linear path.
Yeah,
and
no, I've definitely
you've
not
got
had
to follow the opportunity, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think everything that I've done has stand me in good stead for what I'm doing now.
Yeah, because even like your sort of grassroots business where you've done the Baby Loves Disco is obviously far removed from tech.
Yeah.
But that no marketing spend, community driven, like PR on a shoestring is amazing experience, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I learned a lot from that.
So it's been quite clear then, even from that early stage, you've wanted to give back quite a lot. Then if you got involved so early, I think, with female entrepreneurship.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. So I've done a number of programs specifically with women actually, and I've done a lot with younger people. But yeah, I've worked with loads. I've probably mentored. It must be 500 or more individuals through various different programs, and I love it. I love challenging people. I love getting them to think differently. I love getting them to think about alternative ways about how they can sell stuff. And yeah, I think the community side of thing. So I set up Tech North Advocates in 2016 with a guy called Volker Hirsch. Tech North Advocates was born out of Tech London Advocates, which was set up by Russ Shaw. It's now a global community, so I'm the UK lead for that global community. And that's really just sort of making sure that the North is interconnected to what's happening across the world. So it's people advocating for tech in their areas. And I've met some incredible people through that community.
I'll bet. And is that voluntary? Is that a business?
That's voluntary.
So purely because you want to help put Manchester on the map ultimately.
Yeah.
Love that. So if we wind back a little bit, because people will want to know about the Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
Who will have been on the or who were the Dragons at the time?
The Dragons at the time was the Scottish one.
Oh yeah. Duncan Bannatyne.
Yeah. James Kahn, Peter Jones, Deborah, and Theo Paphitis.
Yeah, so the original kind of
the
lineup.
OGs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what was it like as an experience? Was it as mad as it?
Well, I did it when they filmed it at Pinewood Studios,
Okay.
which was very exciting. And I did it with my American business partner, one of them, Andy. And there's loads of like funny things that sort of happen. It's Andy's like, I'm quite tall, I'm like 5'10". Andy's about 5'7".
Yeah.
And I remember we practiced via Skype. He didn't fly in until the day before we were doing the pitch. And you get some people that have been practicing for weeks and months when they pitch. We didn't have that. And I remember him saying, "Don't wear high heels." And I was like, "I will wear whatever I want to wear."
Yeah. It's
And
not my problem, you're short.
Yeah, exactly. And I sent him a link to loads of Cuban heel companies. But yeah, we did it at Pinewood Studios. At the time, there was a film being made with Anthony Hopkins called The Wolfman. So there was loads of people dressed up as wolves.
Yeah.
And you go into the green room, and everyone that was there had been bumped off from the week before because one of the dragons had been ill. So we just assumed that we would be last.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you stay in like a hotel beforehand, like, the premiere or something like that. And me and Andy were like, "Oh, I wonder who's going to be on it." And so we
at breakfast trying to decide who's pitching.
Yeah, and what's funny is you do hair and makeup, and then you have them in the green room, and then you get assigned like a producer person, assistant producer person, who will listen to your pitch. And I remember the person listened to our pitch, and let's not forget we practiced this on Skype, and we hadn't really practiced it. He'd flown in, he was jet lagged. And we kind of wung it a little bit. So I remember the producer like rolling his eyes. And the next thing, he gets like a call in his ear. And, these other people had gone in, these women from this company called Cookies or something like that, which were basically just cookies made into shapes. And they'd gone into the den and they come out very quickly. So, right, okay, you're on. And literally, oh God, it was horrible. I felt sick. And then you go down a golf buggy thing and then go to the studio. But before that, they film you going up the fake stairs and all that. You go into the den. It was a big, like old mill type thing, wooden floors, quite big. They're just people. Do you know what? I just thought, someone said to me, "I'll just imagine that they're naked." So I kind of did.
Then regretted it.
Yeah, and regretted it. And unlike a normal pitch, you're not like, there's no slides. You're expected to remember everything. We were initially going to ask for £250,000, and literally a week before, the producer said, "I'll ask for 100." So I had to change all the figures, and Andy was going to take responsibility for the figures. And when it comes to talking about the figures, the Scottish one asked me, and I said, "Oh, Andy," he said, "I'm asking you." So, but you know what? I don't know how, but I got the figures out of my head.
Amazing.
And, I thought we were like dead confident that everyone would invest. And the only one that did want to invest was Deborah,
right?
Who was really lovely. And actually they did a follow-up show afterwards where she came up to Manchester, and they did another one after that. She was great. It was a great experience. It gave me a lot of confidence to be able to speak in front of people. I thought, if I can do that, I can do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Is it particularly grueling? Are you in there a long time?
We were in there for an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, a lot longer than the cookie ladies.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think they were in there for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, get out.
And then obviously they edit it.
Yeah.
And they edit it in a way, like the way that they'd edit it, especially like, when they sort of go and talk at the back.
Yeah.
Or when you and the person. So me and I was like saying to Andy, you tell them that you tell them to bugger off because I'm not doing it. Because we would only have gone to 20%.
Yeah.
She wanted 40%, and it would have made us both minority shareholders. There was no point. So it was like, "Please, Andy," and they edited it as if I was saying, "Please, Andy, take the money."
Oh, really? Yeah, that's naughty, isn't it? I always suspect.
But it's a TV
show,
exactly.
Yeah.
You do anything like that, it's gonna get edited.
Yeah. And did it? So obviously you didn't take the money, but did it have any uplift in terms of exposure and things like that?
We had already had a shed load of PR before that. Like, one of the reasons that they were banging on our doors because we'd had so much PR.
And that's an interesting point, actually, because I've heard that quite a lot. People think everyone just applies to one, but they ask you to go on, don't
they approached us. And I remember it was when, where Circle Square is now, that's where the BBC was then. Yeah. So I remember going to visit them there. But yeah, we hadn't applied to go on it. I would never have applied to go on that show. And sadly, I can't even watch it anymore because it makes me cringe. But yeah, it was a great experience. I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah, and it's a bit,
And hilarious.
it's a fun story,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
And I bet your kids love it.
Oh
And
yeah, but the funny thing is that Andy and Heather went on Shark Tank, which is the American equivalent, a couple of years later, and didn't get anything.
there you go.
Yeah, so-
Bragging rights, isn't it?
Yeah, and I remember Deborah saying to me, "I'm investing in you." And she pointed at me, not Andy.
Fair enough. Well, there you go.
Mic drop. Yeah.
So you've got some like phenomenal experience, but I guess a lot of your experience, like you say, now you consider yourself to be more focused on tech. That experience has come from your freelance consulting work, presumably.
Yeah,
is it?
yeah. It's come from the freelance stuff, but it's also I've been involved with a lot of programs.
Yes, of course.
So a lot of entrepreneurship programs that have been digital, tech, or creative.
And what is it about that space that you love so much?
It's exciting. It's new. It's obviously any business should be about solving a problem of some sort.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's because it's fast paced, and interesting.
I agree. And what's made you like so passionate about promoting that in Manchester?
I think Manchester, because obviously, I know a lot about what's happening in London through Tech London Advocates. There's definitely disparity around, investment in the north, salaries in the north, us getting a look in. But I do think that Manchester has made massive leaps and bounds over the last 10 years, probably longer.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we invented the computer.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a bad claim, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's been interesting. I've been in the sort of in and out of the tech scene, I guess, since 2016, and it's come a long way, even in that time, and before that even.
Well, definitely. I remember, I say back in the day now, it wasn't even that long ago, but Manchester had like one kind of place where they had a couple of co-working places, but there was one particular place called Rise on Deansgate.
Yeah, remember it.
That's where Barclays Barclays had like their Eagle Labs there, Tech North, which obviously turned into Tech Nation, were based there. There was a lot of events there. And you could just rock up and you'd just see people that you would know from the tech scene. Now there's so many different places. It's not as like that. I think the only place that I think where you kind of get that atmosphere is probably the Cafe and Bonded Warehouse.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, but otherwise there's not. It's just so many places now.
Yeah, there's loads now in there because there's quite a lot going on.
And there's a lot in the burbs.
Yeah. Well, this is it. It's even spread out. Like we're at Ministry of Work here, and we've got quite a few tech businesses here, fintech, all sorts. It's I think the advances obviously in technology have made it just so that you can be anywhere now.
Yeah, of course.
But I think Manchester's such a good place for it because there's so much knowledge here, and there's so many of those things to support those businesses now, which there didn't used to be.
There is, but what I would say, it's great at Manchester because, obviously, you're based in Salford.
Yep.
I do stuff in Stockport. I do stuff in Bolton. I'm doing stuff in Wigan. I think it's really important that businesses across Greater Manchester know about all the support that is available for them.
Completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. In terms of your experience then as as a consultant, what sort of work have you been involved in? Have you got any good success stories or interesting things that you've been involved in, or equally sort of things that haven't gone as well as you might have expected they would?
Oh, do you know what? I've done so many things.
What's been some of your highlights?
Probably the programs.
Yeah.
So I did an amazing program for women during one of the lockdowns, and there was 100 women on it. It was 113 actually, and it was incredible. It was delivered completely online. Everyone had peer mentoring, so we built the community around it, and those women are still doing stuff together now.
Yeah, amazing.
And that was in 21. It was a program called Freelance Her that I did with Salford Council. It was an amazing program which I designed and delivered.
Amazing. So funded by the council that you put together.
Yeah, it was funded by money from the Business Growth Hub.
Amazing.
It was based at Media City, but obviously it was online. But that was an incredible program. I've designed and delivered lots of really cool programs. I've also, I think, the conversations that I've had with people and the businesses that I've worked with, I think my great. The great thing for me is seeing those people grow and seeing those people be successful. But then also seeing, how even just from, I'll have a conversation with anybody, but obviously, time is money.
Sure.
And I give back a lot. I do. I sit on a number of different boards. But I'm always happy to chat to people. And I was actually, somebody got in touch with me back in May and she said, "Oh, I'd love to have a coffee with you. I'm at a crossroads in my career." And I was like, "Yeah, come down to Stockport." And we did. She did. And I said, "Look, what do you want to do?" And she said, "Well, I'd love to get into space that you're in." I said, "Well, you're not ready for that yet, but let's have a look and see where you're up to. Checked to LinkedIn, made a couple of tweaks to the CV, etc. And then one of the roles that came up was actually program manager for NatWest.
Oh, perfect.
And she got it.
Yeah.
She applied for it because she wouldn't have applied for it. I said, "Just go for it. You're perfect for it. You've got everything that's listed. Go for it." And actually, I went out for a drink with her last week, and she'd got the job.
Amazing.
Which was really cool. So I love stuff like that.
And like for her, that exposure then as the program manager, because that, just for context, that's the Accelerator Hub at Manchester NatWest.
Yeah.
The exposure she'll then get to startups.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the key for Greater Manchester, really.
Yeah.
If people can get that exposure to those startups, that's when the ideas grow, really. Because mine when I first started, it was such a basic idea. It was just time for money.
Yeah.
And it was being exposed to other startups. I was like, oh shit, that's a great idea.
Well, this is the thing. So with other programs that I've been involved in. So I'm working with Capital Enterprise and the Turing Innovation Catalyst on their AI accelerator. So helped design the program, brought in the mentors, handpicked mentors that I'd worked with. All the mentors get paid, the entrepreneurs in residence and the facilitators. And help support gets the AI, because that's specifically for businesses that have got AI. And what is really beautiful when you do things properly and things are facilitated properly is that they see how they can work together and learn from each other. So one of the things I would say my forte also is making those connections.
Yeah.
I've actually done lectures on it and written about it. Is how you sort of use your network. You do business with people generally that like, and trust, but actually how you build that network and make connections. It's about having conversations with people.
Of course it is. And also not everyone can do it though. You probably like you will be able to see not necessarily opportunity, but like that person can help that person with this problem, but they don't know that yet.
So I've got an insane brain for that, and actually I've worked out why, because I got diagnosed with ADHD back in May.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I can do it. And that's probably how I can work on 10 different projects at the same time. Because my brain works like that. So I can have a conversation with somebody, and in my head it's whirling around and saying, okay, if they looked at this and had a conversation with this person, they will be able to do A, B, and C. Do you know what I mean? It's that's one thing that I've always, and I've had some brilliant, stories of meeting people on trains. Like I met this amazing woman called Linda Davidson. Must have been about 6-7 years ago now, on a train from London back up to Manchester. And I sat opposite her, and she was really cool. She had like bleach blonde spiky hair. She had a leather dress on, like really classy. She was on the phone, and I recognised her. And it turns out it was Mary from EastEnders. But like, I don't know if anyone's old enough to watch the original EastEnders, but the very first episode of EastEnders, Mary was in it. And she was the punk, and she was in it for a couple of series. But actually, Linda is now does digital transformation for TV companies.
Oh wow!
So she's not Mary from, and it turns we literally spoke the whole time, and we've got like mutual connections, and we've kept in touch. I've had lunch and dinner with her. So yeah, I met her on a train.
That's it.
So yeah, I love talking to people.
And even the Manchester tech startup scene, it's small enough though still to be like super accessible. That's what I love about it.
It is. It's quite can be quite siloed in some areas. But yeah, it's.
But you find that everyone knows everyone in a way, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Like you're only sort of like one person removed from probably the person you need to speak to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just about people, being generous their time
Yeah.
and their connections as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because interesting, like one of our mutual connections is Vikas.
Yeah.
He's going to come on the podcast
Yeah.
in a few months' time.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. In terms of where you see things going for Greater Manchester from the tech scene point of view, like what do you expect to happen in the next sort of 2 to 5 years, and what do you hope to see change?
What I'd hope to see change is it become more investors.
Yeah,
It's still very difficult for businesses from Manchester to get investment.
it is.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And I think also, I'd like to see more kind of seed money, like really teeny tiny seed money being offered to businesses that have got ideas to develop. So, there are loads of programs at the moment. I'll give you an example. So the Turing Innovation Catalyst is part of 10 innovation accelerators across Greater Manchester at the moment. They have the AI accelerator. They've done a program for commercializing research. They've upskilled about 750 people in AI skills. They also have another offer where they can match businesses who want to do research and development with university and create new products, so MVPs and things like that. And they also they're developing another thing at the moment, which hasn't been confirmed yet, but that's going to be about being able to supply part of someone's salary to be able to develop a product
cool.
or a service.
Yeah.
There's loads of things like that. The Business Growth Hub have got loads of support. So I think, it's still, I'm really, really impressed by those businesses that bootstrap. Okay. I'm always really impressed by those businesses that have got early stage customers. So they've got an MVP and they've tested it with customers that are quite prepared to give them some cash.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I see, and this is like the whole sort of smoke and mirrors thing, is that people think if they get investment that it's going to be the cash cow. It's rubbish, right?
Total rubbish.
You have to have done your research. You have to have spoken to customers. You have to have tested the market.
There has to be some form of early traction, doesn't there?
There has to be. There has to be. Nobody. And do you know what? Quite rightly so. If you ask in whatever stage of investment, if you asking someone to give you their cold hard cash, you've got to be able to prove that people are going to want to buy the thing that you're selling.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
There has been, I think, for quite a number of years, that sort of like expectation. I've got an idea, so
Yeah.
someone should give me money.
No. And there's still people that think that that's going to happen. You have to be really clear about the problem that you're solving. What are the pain points for the customer? Knowing the customers, the different types of customers inside and out, and being able to do that market research. A lot of the programs that I'm doing is like literally saying the same thing all the time. But these founders are so ingrained into their thing that they don't see outside of it.
Yeah.
So yes, it would be great to sort of see more investment in Manchester, but I think also there has to be some recognition from the founders that actually they're not going to get just free money. You've got to be able to have some kind of traction. So I always admire those ones that have bootstrapped.
Yeah. It's not my first startup was bootstrapped, and it was a challenge, shall we say?
Yeah,
but,
of course it is.
Use the money from the customer as your investment, effectively.
Absolutely. And I think going back to your original question, what do you want to see in the next 2 to 5 years? I think there's lots of companies that are still continuing to move to Manchester and Greater Manchester. I think I class us as the second tech hub in the UK. A lot of people will say it's Birmingham, Yanis, sorry. But, I think we still need to keep we need to keep telling those stories about all the great stuff that we're doing. And I think, I tell you who needs to tell more stories as well is the universities. Universities do some incredible work. They don't talk to people about it.
They probably don't know enough about it.
They don't. They don't.
That's Naomi Timperley, growth and innovation consultant, advisor and mentor to tech startups throughout Greater Manchester. She's recently been named the second most influential woman in UK tech by Computer Weekly, and she's the founder of Tech North Advocates as well, where she's made it her mission to put Manchester on the global map. Thanks so much for listening to the show this week, and please make sure to click the follow button on your podcast so you never miss a new episode of the show. Don't forget to check out Ministry of Work, where you can sign up for a VIP tour and you can find out more about how we can help your startup. This episode was produced, recorded, and edited right here at Ministry of Work, with a special thanks to our studio manager, Dan Brown, and of course to you for listening. I'm Eddie Whittingham, and this has been Greater Manchester's Greatest Minds.